What is going on, guys? So before this episode starts, I want to give a huge shout out to our sponsor for today's episode, and it is Movement. I have been working with them for a long time, and normally I have a 15% discount code, which is already pretty crazy. But right now, through February 13th, they are running a Valentine's Day special for 20% off. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, 20% off and free shipping. If you need some blue light blocking glasses, you need some amazing sunglasses, you need an accessory for your lovely lady or your lovely guy, a watch, some sort of jewelry. They have everything at affordable prices. Click the link down below to get 20% off using code MAX. Check them out. Would highly recommend them. Thanks to Movement for sponsoring today's episode, and enjoy the podcast. This is episode number 35 with Mr. Steven, I might butcher this, Borelli.
You kind of look like Jesus.
And why don't you start just like who you are, what you do.
Yeah, like we're coming.
Say thanks so much for coming. What's funny is like how massive of a is. Very soft. Like it uses moisturizer every day.
I had been itching.
What?
I was like, what's going on?
Hey, we should fucking do women's apparel.
No fucking way.
Women love to spend money.
Yeah.
We love a good nucleus.
You kind of look like Jesus.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Don't Be Sour. I'm your host, Max Tuning. This is episode number 35 with Mr. Steven, I might butcher this, Borelli.
Close, Borelli, but Borelli.
Borelli.
Yep.
Italian?
Italian.
Yep. Owner, founder, CEO of Cuts Clothing. What's up, man? Welcome to the show.
Let's rock. I've been a big fan for years. I'm happy to chop it up.
I'm definitely someone, I'm very excited about this interview. Not only when I get to sit down with a business owner, entrepreneur, and you're on another level of growth that you've done. So it's super inspiring, but your brand Cuts is, I don't know if you're aware that I have a clothing company,
Yep.
Everforward. It's a much smaller scale, but the angle and the direction that you have taken with Cuts is the exact, not like super exact, but that minimal, clean, simple look and vibe and brand. That is like what I've always tried to create with Everforward, and seeing you have so much success with like the exact kind of like love I have for that type of clothing is super cool to see. So I'm excited for this, man.
I love it. I always say it seems, we were never one of those brands that I felt like, even though we did have a lot of success in 5 years, it was just baby steps. Like, when you're hitting the gym, doing those squats, 5 pounds, that's kind of what our journey felt like.
Yeah. And why don't you start just like who you are, what you do? What do you tell people when you get in an Uber or something and someone's like, hey, like what do you do? Like, what do you say? What do you identify as?
I usually go, because I try not to overplay it. I sell t-shirts. I'm the t-shirt guy.
A lot of t-shirts.
And we make, in short, we make clothing for the sport of business. So the new modern workforce where they want to be casual and comfortable, but still be professional, that's Cuts, and that's the community we serve.
And you guys are only 5 years old?
5 years since Shopify went live, 7 years since I moved home to start the business. So,
okay.
So our Shopify went live in like late 2017. I moved home in 2015. So I call it year 0, where we were pre-revenue. I was living at home, sleeping on the Movement guy's couch and that kind of business.
Pre-revenue. That's the Shark Tank's favorite phrase for people to say. It's like
pre-revenue.
It's like means we have no money.
Yeah.
Well, cool, man. Why don't you like take me back and like tell me like who you are and kind of where you came from and how you even started with this idea to make this like clothing brand.
Sure. I was working at an advertising agency in San Diego, and my boss kicked me out of a meeting, and he said, it was an office like this, but maybe even a little nicer. And he said, hey, Steven, what you're wearing to work isn't formal enough. Dasani was coming in, and he was like, you can't be in the meeting.
What were you wearing?
I was wearing a Lululemon 5-year basic and like their joggers. I was like early on that trend, and with nice, like, like Cole Haan shoes. He said no athletic shoes. And he was like, they want to be, you got to be professional. Although he was wearing a t-shirt at the time. He was wearing, I think, like a James Purse tee or something.
Like, I'm the owner though. I get to do what I want.
Yeah.
I'm the boss.
And so then at that moment I realized like, there's an angle here of a shirt that's like an athletic shirt, but isn't really positioned for the gym, but feels like you're going to the gym. And at the time, my office was part of that casualization, maybe a little bit earlier before the macro trend hit it in 2015. And I really thought like that's where clothing was going to go. So that's where I felt of the market opportunity. But before that, I had seen Movement watches have a lot of success. And 2012, 2013, and Pure Vita bracelets. I went to school with both of them at San Diego State, and it became, there's like probably 7 e-com companies that are like really, that have done really well out of San Diego State. And I had been itching to do an e-com business. And I remember I was on his couch, and he was the founder of Movement, and he showed me his revenue per day, and it was like 20,000 in the day. And I was like, what?
He's like, the fuck?
I was like, this? And then like a week later, the Pure Vita guy who sells bracelets.
Yeah.
And I literally thought it was a joke. And he had more revenue. He had like $40,000 in a day. And I was like, you got what? And so through 2014 and 2016, I was working at this advertising agency, and I was just really curious, like, what is my product going to be that I'm actually passionate about? And I knew it needed to be something that had a high replenishment, because both of their businesses relied heavily on new customer acquisition.
Yeah.
And they had a harder time keeping customers. So when I thought of a men's t-shirt, I was like, this is a product you can have 10 of the same item. So it might be perfect, but at the time, both those guys said, hey, clothing's going to be way too hard. Don't do it.
I've never heard anyone say the word casualization. I like it. And what's funny about your story, you said your boss was like, you can't wear the Lululemon. You should have been like, do you understand this is $400 between the t-shirt and the joggers and the Cole shoes? And so you had the idea, and then like, what was the first steps? Because myself, I remember when I had the concept to get into clothing, it kind of stems from like the YouTube thing. How did you learn how to, because the biggest question I get asked all the time is everyone wants to start a clothing company.
Totally.
And it's like, how do I start a clothing company? Like, how did you figure that out? Did you have a mentor? Did you just Google? Like, how did Cuts really, really start?
Well, I remember I had the idea, and then as soon as I had the idea, I was like, all right, I gotta move home, because there's no way I can do this. I need somewhere where I have a zero burn rate, where I'm not spending money, and the money I make from a job, I can put it towards the business. But it was funny. I didn't know anything. Like, I didn't know anything about e-com or fashion. I remember searching in like how to make a t-shirt into Google, and I didn't even know what a pattern maker was.
Yeah.
And so like I had to go back to the basics, but it really was just like, asked one buddy in college, that a girl that worked for a company, and then she gave me like good keywords, and then I asked her, and then they connected me with this one factory. And I remember I would just fly from Seattle, outside of Seattle, this town called Wenatchee, to LA. And every trip I just learned a little bit more, developed my contacts. And at that time I was really curious of like, hey, who do you know that knows a fabric mill, or who do you know that knows something? I asked a ton of questions. And actually this is kind of maybe getting ahead, but the coolest thing happened to me over Christmas. The guy who I started, the first factory in LA that I started with, they ended up being not that great of a factory. They actually kind of like burned me on some units. And in their defense, I was the annoying kid that wouldn't leave their factory. Right. And they were like, we're not making any money on 2,000 units. But I was really, it was all I had, all the money I had. But fast forward 6 years, guess what gift his grandma got him for Christmas?
What is it?
Just a Cuts shirt. And so he opened it up, and he's like, no fucking way. Like,
this is the guy that
was living in my place, and he sent me a photo of it, and it was like kind of like a full circle thing. And he was like, dude, that's epic. And he's like, I've seen you everywhere. I can't believe like we started working with you guys. And it was a cool moment.
And where did the name Cuts come from?
So when I had the idea, I thought I was going to name it Stephen David, which is my first and middle name.
You want to go like the bougie.
The bougie. But then when I would walk around Nordstrom, and I would be like, there's Jeffrey Campbell, there's James Purse. I mean, that's all they have there. And I was, so we were at shopping in Nordstrom's, and we were like, oh man, I wish this type of shirt had, different cuts at it. And so then I was like, wow, it's a 4-letter word, which like Nike's 4 letters, like big iconic brands had like 4-letter words, and it's catchy. It's like, what shirt are you wearing? Cuts. Like I knew that was something that you could kind of spitball and it could catch fire. And so I found a trademark lawyer, and she's like, hey, this guy named Jay Cutler in Venice.
Jay Cutler.
Has the trademark of Cut Apparel, so you won't be able to use this.
Bodybuilder Jay Cutler. So we reached out to him, and we thought it was like, no way we're going to get it. I was like, hey, I'm a college kid, broke. I don't have any money to pay you. Is there a way we could like live? He wasn't even using the trademark anymore.
And he was like, yeah, go for it. Like follow your dreams. And it was awesome.
Jay's an amazing guy. I've met him a handful of times, and it's like, it's funny. You see him. Have you met him in person?
Never met. It was actually through our lawyer. So he probably doesn't even know this story, but if, you should connect me. I would love to say
no,
thank you.
what's funny is like how massive of a guy is. He's like the most gentle giant, actually. When you go to give him a handshake, you expecting this, like, my hand's going to get crushed. It's like gentle, like very soft hands, like uses moisturizer every day. I'm like, damn, this is different. So Cuts was like the name that you landed on, and that was your first one. Did you, at the time, were you trying to find like if the socials were available, if the websites were available? Was there any like alternative name besides your own name, or was there other, like, what was there a name that didn't make it?
I was driving in LA. I saw BLU. I'm like, blue, because I was really fixated on 4 letters. Like a 4-letter word. I didn't really want my name because then I didn't want people to think they were buying Stephen Borelli. Not that I'm not proud of myself, but like I wanted it to be abstract where it could create its own life.
Yeah.
And not have like me and my history as like the first cognitive like thought process in people's minds. And so I was fixated on 4 letters or under, and blue was one. And Brennan, who was still started the business essentially with, he was like, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
And it was like between Steve and David. And then it kind of came to like, hey, we got to get things going. So we decided on Cuts. And, we decided on the X. And then the idea was, hey, you could shop by cut. You could have 3 different bottom cuts on a shirt and 3 different collars and short and long sleeve. And that was going to be our product offering. And really through 4 years, we did that offering. And we bootstrapped the business. We did $10 million before any of the 4 guys that I started with, before we paid anybody. And
Really?
we all had separate jobs at that time. And so Carter, actually, he's our CFO now, but he was working at a hospital finance, and we were friends at the gym. And I was like, hey, when we get to 10 million in sales, you're gonna have to move to LA. And he's like an outdoors guy. And then like it happened really quick, and he was getting engaged. And I was like, hey, it's time. And so he had to move a lot quicker.
Are there multiple owners, or is?
I'm the only founder.
Okay.
They came on like after the first 2 like pre-seed
But
years.
you own 100% of the company?
They own parts of it.
Okay.
But the majority shareholder is me. Yeah.
And when you started, you said when you get to 10 million in sales, how quickly did you grow to 10 million?
We did 180K, 2 mil, and then 10 mil in that order.
That's a lot of fucking growth, man.
Mm-hmm.
And like when you started the brand, like take me back to like day 1 launch. Like what was your expectations when you put it out in the world? Like how did you put it out there? Was it a very strategic launch plan? Or, because social media was still popping, at that time as well, but maybe it isn't as crazy as it is now. Like what was your strategy out of the gate of, I'm going to launch this clothing brand?
And I always give credit where credit's due. Jake at Movement Watches, he launched a Kickstarter, and they did like, I think almost $1 million on Kickstarter. That was when Kickstarter's heyday, which was like 2010, 2011. Yeah. And he was like, and it still holds true today, which I recommend to a lot of people. Kickstarter, even though it's not going to be a viral moment, at least it makes you think of problem, solution. You have to put a video together, a website. You have to get photo assets. It really makes you it's like your business plan. And so we did $45,000 on it. And it wasn't even close to enough to afford our first PO.
Really? How big were you trying to do on your first PO?
Well, because didn't know what we were doing, we were like, we're going to have 2 fits. Here are all the colors that you could order. Like pretty much on our Kickstarter, we way over promised. So then when we got the orders to afford all of those colors, there's minimums. So we didn't think of it in minimums. We just said, hey, you could have all this stuff. So what people actually ordered on Kickstarter, we said, hey, actually, we can't afford that based on this PO. So we have to minimize the PO and so you're actually, instead of a V-neck, you're going to get a crew neck, So
how am I going to show off my upper chest with a crew neck, man?
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit? Because I feel like there's a lot of people that maybe don't understand Kickstarter. Mm-hmm. Even I do. Like I understand I have an idea. Mm-hmm. You raise money through the people. Yep. Like what is that? Is that like you did it because you're like, okay, we can't self-fund this to do it at the level. Like you didn't, like when I started Everforward, it was, obviously I had an audience, but it was, I'm going to start with 300 t-shirts of one t-shirt, 2 colors, 300 units each, like to test the water. You like really went out of the gate of like, let's have a line of apparel, or at least multiple options to choose from. Like, how did you walk me through like the Kickstarter concept?
I wanted the concept to be like cuts, and then you could shop by cut. That was the original concept. So to do that, that was going to be like the launch strategy, to do t-shirts differently. Because there was a lot of my buddies that had longer torsos. So the elongated one really works for them. Or a split hem's good to layer. Like if you have a jacket, the split hem looks good poking out. Yeah. And then the curve hem is just kind of the basic, everyday shirt. So I thought that was just enough to give me like my moment of like spark. Like, I always say when you're starting a brand, you want that like some level of spark. It doesn't need to be rocket science, but something just a little bit different to give you like, oh, that's a cool concept. And then you can go. So that was the spark, the shop by cut. And
like, how does Kickstarter work? Like you had a goal of X amount, and you said you raised like 45,000.
Yeah. 40? So it's essentially pre-orders. You'll put your offering out there. Here's the business. You go about a video, a problem solution, and you say, hey, if you support this campaign, I'll in return give you a shirt. So it essentially, it's not really funding. Like no one's giving you a paycheck, and or like what you see in the VC world now, where someone will give you a couple $1,000,000 and then you won't have to pay it back. We had to order product with it that we actually delivered to them. So it's more of a pre-order system than like a funding of the business.
Okay. And then during that launch, like how did you decide what fabric, like did you know much about fabrics? Did you do like a cotton t-shirt? Was it a spandex blend? Like how did you decide on what the initial products were going to be? Like you knew the problem that you had with like shirts that you knew, but like what was your mindset of the design and the fabric breakdown of like what you're going to launch?
We knew that in the casualization of the workforce, people were all of a sudden now working out of coffee shops, and they would go to LA and New York, and they would have a meeting, and nothing was going to do well with like highly wrinkled items. So our stuff, if you hang it up for like an hour, it doesn't wrinkle anymore. So I knew I needed a fabric that accomplished that, and our first, and it's got many layers of development now, but it was a cotton poly spandex with a really, really tight weave that got washed twice on really high heat and then cut, just so it would accomplish all of that. And so early on, me and Sean would go to China, and we really were fortunate in the early days to get a factory that let us do samples.
Yeah.
And we would actually go there. They would run the samples. We would, say yes or no, and then they would run it again. And that's kind of how we started our fabric.
Okay. And when you had your first launch, I know you said, what did you do in the first year? You said a couple hundred.
Well, pretty much like from October 1st on the first year we did like 180. The next year we did 2, and then that next year we really took off.
You did 180 from October to December
on our first in 2017. Yeah.
Okay. When you first launched, what was your expectation of how well you were like hoping the day one or week one to go? And did it hit that? Did it exceed it?
We did. We put the goal at 10K, and we did 45K in the first month. And then it kind of like, we were fortunate enough where and it was that period of time, you could literally ship something from China. The prices have gotten so much more expensive now, but we could have like 2,000 units in like, because we've pre-bought the fabric in like 30 days, because we would air everything, and it was like super cheap. It was like $500.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
It's like 10x that now.
Yeah.
Like we have to boat everything now. But and we just thought that's how the business was. So we could maintain momentum really quick.
Was there any like super early struggles that you had, or like complications out of the gate because once you learn about manufacturing, the process, it's not like super simple, but it's very like, it is what it is. Right. Mm-hmm. And was there anything that like in your initial, maybe first 6 months that you didn't plan for, that was some catastrophic, crazy shit show that cost you a ton of money? And like, what was that? And how did you grow from it?
So we got really excited about the 45K and doing sales. Then we sold out everything throughout like our first Black Friday. Then we like didn't have any products. So we pretty much didn't have a business. and our factory like shorted us 2,000 units, and they're essentially like saying, Steven, get lost. Like you're doing your, I turned their production into like my casting for models and stuff. They're like, and I totally see why they did this now. They're like, get the hell out of our factory. And at that point I was like, all right, we gotta get to China. It was like $20 a shirt, you know, it was like, or more, it was like $25. We weren't making
for t-shirts.
Yeah. We were getting hosed in this place. So we went to, I was playing. So, and that factory, the quality was shit. And people would get it. The Henleys would be sideways and we're like, oh, this is not good.
You're like, but it was great in the final pre-production sample. And then you get the bulk and it's like, what the fuck?
Yeah. I was like, what's going on? And so, and again, like different time with COVID, like I haven't been to China in a while, but then flights were like $500 round trip back then on southern China. Like the airline, like we were on the bottom of the double decker and like sardines. I think it would give me anxiety if I did it again. But so then we said, hey, I was playing basketball with this kid actually in LA, and he was like, hey, I have a really good source that if you're out there, you should go. And I was like, dude, this guy's kind of weird. I don't want to like talk to him. And we're out there. We had this agent, and he took us to like sweatshops. We're like, this is like your epic factories.
Yeah. And
he was like, yeah, you're going to buy your fabric in the Philippines and you're going to ship it here. So we bought $20,000 worth of fabric in the Philippines, and in the region of Philippines where like ISIS is. And so he was like, oh, we actually have to go there because there's a problem with the factory. This guy was a total rookie. And so when we went to China, the fabric was supposed to meet us in China, and we were going to go there and dial out because we had developed this fabric. And he was like, we get there and there's like not even a table to put our fabric on. It's like it was very bad conditions in this town called Yiwu in China. And so we at that point we realized, one, the fabric's not even there. We don't even know where it is. We still to this day don't know what happened.
Never got the fabric.
Never got the fabric. And so we were back to, again, like 3 months later, back to square zero. And then that guy at the gym was like, well, we're out here. I might as well follow up on what he says. And he gets this translator and to pick us up at our hotel, like 9 hours away in China from where we were going. This guy doesn't speak a lick of English. He's like, hey, it's going to be a long drive, but we'll send someone for you. I'm like, he's going to drive 9 hours there and drive 9 hours back in one day. He's like, yeah. He picks us up and he drives us 9 hours. And it was like, felt like we were going into like God's country or something. Cause it was like all this like just disgusting China. We go into this beautiful little town. Like it's a small town. And all of a sudden, like the sun starts to shine. That's what it felt like. And we go into this factory, and it's like a good mom and pop shop. It wasn't too big where they would laugh at us, but like Chinese people, if you go there, they like really value Americans, like showing their face, and their culture is like very respectful if you're there. And I was like, hey, we have this idea. We don't have the fabric. Actually, I have the one on that we made, but we were supposed to have it and bring it and all this stuff. And he was like, hey, why don't we just get on the machines and make it, which is very, very rare to actually let someone
mill fabric
on the fly for you. And so he was like, let's try this cotton, let's try this poly, let's try this spandex, this type of weave. And he was like an expert at it. And so we were like working with like one of like the best people in the world, essentially. And then like the first sample didn't come out good. And then 2 hours later, he was like, let's try this type of cotton, and let's maybe a little bit higher quality spandex. So we were just riffing, and then we did that for like 3 days, and we finally got something we want. And that costs money, and he didn't charge us for that because he was like, these Americans are here. We're gonna, give them time, and we're still with them to this day. And now they're like, they didn't have a big factory. Now they have like 4 factories. The guy drives a nice car. His house has gotten bigger, so it's been a good thing for him too.
Yeah. Well, that's cool to see here, like the kind of the origin story. Mm-hmm. What do you think from going from the hundreds of thousands to the millions? What do you think was the first kind of catalyst in the brand that really, being in the 100,000s early on without being, let's say, having a huge name behind it or some crazy funding behind it is already like impressive as shit. But to go not only just to a million, but into, you said 10 million?
Yeah, within like almost like about 24 months.
That's crazy. Like what do you think was the thing that happened that was just like this spike?
we had the fundamentals right to scale. We had a high replenishment good that you could buy 10 of. So we didn't always have to acquire customers. Like someone could buy in January and buy 2 more times before the end of the year. That was a huge thing, which I think when people think of an idea, they don't think in that cycle. We had an offering that was just a little bit different than you couldn't find somewhere else. Like, even though you could find elongated shirts places, you couldn't find them all in one area. And if you find the fit, it was rare to, like at Lulu still to this day, you can't shop. They have one type of hemline and not all body types fit that, like some people need that longer torso because they just have a really long torso. Or, they like to wear it. So it's kind of what women have always done in there. If you go to a women's shop, they have all these different shapes. And it's like overwhelming. We kind of did that for the male body, which guys have really liked. And so that's on the product side. On the marketing side, we just spent money really efficiently. We
just started spending a fuck ton of money.
Yeah. And because we kind of knew the growth hacks of like the Facebook. Now there's not as many growth hacks on Facebook ads as there was back then. But we were profitable on our first order. Plus we had we had people rebuying. So we had just enough to build momentum, and the machine never stopped even from the day we started. And I think that's where fashion companies really get in a hard time. Like they can never get that flywheel going, is they like in Sean, we had a really good nucleus. Sean he was operations, and he was working at Boeing at the time. And he was just someone that was not going to let the lights turn off from ordering the right inventory and being proactive. Okay, this is your daily sales. We should order now. So by the time this comes out, you're going to get stuff. I ran like the product development. Carter ran finances, and Brennan kind of did all the content for the website. So everyone was like clicking really well. And we just had a good nucleus out of the gate, and a great product offering.
We love a good nucleus. Just like our boy Nacho Libre,
Yeah.
What you talk about like this rocket ship and spending more on marketing. That's where probably a lot of people, if they've never physically seen a Cuts shirt, they don't buy it, they don't know someone who's purchased it. Maybe it's my algorithm, but like I get slapped with Cuts ads like I'm like, y'all are pushing hard to me, and like so y'all are heavy in the marketing. What kind of like how deep are you in that? I'm assuming that's where a lot of your sales come from. Is it difficult finding the balance of the customer acquisition cost of like keeping to do ad spend to get a new customer versus like returning customers? Or do you think that it's like a balance that you're able to kind of like manage?
I would say the golden years were like right when we started, even before movement days. Like it was just like, if you were doing anything, you could sell anything in 2014. Like it was that good. Now, so when we first started, I'm not gonna lie, it was like, hey, we're spending. Yeah. Now it's much more balanced. We do a lot of influencer. The media mix is, we do TV, we do podcast. So we spread out the spend amongst a bunch of different channels. TikTok's been taken off too. And so, but early on it was like, I would run the Facebook ads up until about that 10 million mark before we brought in an internal buyer. But it was kind of fun though. Like those were when I look back, I was the only, Sean was in Washington, Carter was in Washington, Brennan was in San Diego, and I was in LA in a small little WeWork. And I always tell people that was like the golden era of like fun.
There's always like the time before it gets real and like it's really like head down hard work. It's hard to just say it. Not saying there wasn't hard work, but it's like there's a different point when sometimes you look back and like you said, the golden era, and it's kind of like you don't want to go back to that, but you're like, life was a lot simpler in 2000 and what or whatever.
Even like 1,000, like I remember at one point saying like, I just wish we could do 10K a day, like
10K a day CEO, right?
I was just like, if we do that, I've made it.
Yeah.
And now if I ever saw that and before I wake up, I would be nervous.
Yeah.
So
that's crazy. Can you share a range of like your monthly ad spend or like how much?
It would kind of give away a lot, but it's in the several $1 million. Yeah.
A month?
Yeah, over $1 million. And some months it's
what the fuck? That's crazy.
Much greater than that. Yeah.
That's crazy, man. And you know what's the ad that I get hit with literally 18 times a day? Who's the shirtless dude that like it's like this Cuts his t-shirts always hard to find, and they're
the
wrong.
age-old thing sells, sex sells. So we that guy with the jacked abs, it's so funny. Like, I don't want to get a tangent on like the 2020 years when like all this like old, like this new, hey, do these type of models and stuff, but sex sells.
Yeah.
Get a guy with his rock hard abs. Now, if it's your type of brand, but we make clothing for the sport of business and athletic people predominantly, and that ad just does well.
Yeah, I literally all the time. I'm always like, man, this guy was just walking away from the wall, just shirt happens to be hanging right there. And it's funny reading comments of like...
We get ripped on comments.
I know.
Ripped.
It's funny seeing like ads for a lot of different brands, and you just read the comments of people that just like... It's like, you're like, I'm not marketing to you. You're almost like, I'm wasting ad spend on those people. It's like, I need to market to the people that...
We actually love trolls. Like, early on, we used to stress
engagement,
about it.
I mean, shit.
It's just engagement. So like, we actually have a team in the Philippines. This might be giving away one of my secrets, but that stokes the fire of those trolls.
Yeah.
So it's just like, their sole job is just to comment on ads, just to create like engagement. Like, if someone asks a question, sometimes it's legit, or if it's just like, hey, like, we'll make really funny remarks at trolls, like, this shirt would never look good on you, or like we're okay with saying, hey, these shirts aren't for everyone.
Yeah. And so one thing I want to, so as you guys have like taken over, we'll say in the social media ad world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something that a lot of people get caught up with in social media is like the engagement, the likes, whatever. Now, Cuts is a brand that does over 9 figures, massively successful. And in a short, and literally such a short period of time is like really unheard of, especially as you haven't taken funding and bootstrapped. A lot of people get caught up with the engagement thing, and like, can you kind of explain your thought on like likes don't necessarily mean sales?
Yeah,
because
totally.
a brand that's doing as well as yours, and then maybe
we'll have a photo doing 6 comments.
Yeah, exactly. Like, how does that, like, did that ever bother you in terms of it, or you're like, I don't give a fuck? Like,
it was always tough because like I would look at some other brands. I'm like, we're bigger than, but look at this engagement.
They're getting 20,000 likes and 1,700 comments.
And I think like some brands, you need that to have success. Like, if you're more of a high fashion brand, if you're not getting that, like Kith probably doesn't, his an amazing business, and they get tons of comments, but their customer is gonna comment back. So they probably get a lot of data off from organic posting, and that's and because their stuff is hyphy, and that's what matters, and that's going to drive sales for them, and part of their data points. For us, our guy is the guy who's behind a desk at a tech company. He's not necessarily on Instagram all the time, so the comments and likes like aren't as important for our type of a business. And I think it just depends on the business you have, how important that is.
How do you think people find how do you think people find Cuts?
We shove it down there. We shove ads down their throat.
It's like, it's for the people who aren't on Instagram, but we're going to hammer you. When you do get on Instagram, we're going to be the ad that's like...
And our influencers. So what I said was just Facebook spend. There's also a huge budget of influencer spend, which mirrors that spend per month. How many
you call them athletes?
We have a top-downs, bottom-up approach. We mainly just build relationships with professional athletes like Damian Lillard, Pat Connaughton on the Bucks. He's been on my podcast. He's a great guy. Bam, a lot of NBA guys. Walker Buehler. We did a shoe collab with. Those ones are more like, we can't pay them anything that's like competitive. But we can give them shirts on time. We can be homies with them, and if anytime they need anything, they can hit us up. And I always tell the team, if we have to actually pay those guys to wear our stuff, we're not doing a good job designing.
Yeah.
Because we should have stuff that they want to wear, that they asked for.
What's crazy is every single person you just mentioned, I have no idea who they are. I'm the most non-sports watcher in the entire world. It actually is embarrassing as like a male of like, I should be into sports.
That's shocking to me.
Like if you said, Max, I'll give you $1 million if you can tell me a team that any of these people play on, just one of their team, I have nothing. I don't know who they are.
Steph Curry.
Steph Curry with the pot boy, right? But I don't know what team he plays for. He's basketball.
Golden State.
I literally was about to say the
with
Lakers.
I
literally was about to say the Lakers. Someone watching this is like, the fuck, Max? Come on, man. So you guys, now you're expanding into women's, or you just recently started. Yep. With the guys' apparel, something that I've found is, I wouldn't say women's apparel is easier by any means. It has a lot of difficulties. But I guess the what I found as you know, a lot of my friends have very successful clothing companies, and a lot of them have went heavily into the women's apparel, is that the amount of variations, options, new styles, newness for women is unheard of. It's massive, right? Girls always want new leggings, new shirts, new outfits every single day, and there's a lot of options. For guys, we're really simple. We wear the same. I have like 2 pairs of jeans. I got like 3 chinos.
I wear these like every day.
Literally. Like I wear the same stuff, and as you know, every dude just wants a black t-shirt, black joggers.
We benefit from that.
And you know, people have found advantages in going in the graphic tee world, the hype stuff, because they can, you know, there's trends and there's you know, new graphics that are, you know, relative at the time or whatever, and they can constantly be coming out with new stuff. With a company like yours, which is again my style, I prefer this world, right? Just having the shirt that literally doesn't have a logo, or it's super minimal, or it's so minimal that someone's like, "What shirt is that?" You're like, "Oh, where's the fucking logo? It's somewhere around here." You know, they look like, a lot of them are blank t-shirts. It's the cut, it's the fabric, it's whatever, rather than creating we'll call it a culture company where you want to see other people repping the big graphic tee. How have you battled like having like you go this simplistic route with men's apparel and have found so much success in it? Like how do you sell to guys don't want to buy a bunch of clothes?
Yeah, I think it's just really making things that they've like really asking questions what they want, and I think the biggest opportunities are the ones that are the hardest to identify. Yeah. So like for us, there had been a ton of shirts out there before cuts. I mean, there was millions of brands that do shirts and, you know, products everywhere, but there wasn't one that was hitting that wrinkle free, that doesn't shrink in the laundry, that we're really proud of that. Like you could beat it up and it's going to be the same size. I'm going to put this shirt in the dryer 18 times when I get home. I'm going to measure it. And if it doesn't, yeah. And that level of like where the market was going was what guys wanted. You know, no one wants, because like, you know, we have a cotton option for sweaty guys, and you know, even that one you have to be a little bit more careful around, and it doesn't even do, you know, close to the volume of our hero product. So just kind of understanding those gray line areas, I think, is where like most of the success comes from. How do you evolve the men's line? Because that's even a struggle. I feel like a lot of my questions are like literally like with like my own problems with like Everford or something. But like something that I found with such a simple t-shirt, right? Like let's say you have your hero line, you have all the colors in the world. Do you ever feel like a struggle of like guys want super simple items, and we're such a simplistic branding company? Like how do you continue to evolve with new products for guys? I think knowing the market that you're serving, and that's something that we talk to the product team a lot. I say know a lot. Yeah. Is so we came out with this phrase for the sport of business, because we were like, you know, we're not athletic, but we're not formal wear either. You know, and so it was kind of a new category, which you know, the market now is calling it work leisure. We call it like for the sport of business is like our kind of term, and that just means like clothing you can compete in business that looks like professional, but also casual where you're comfortable. And I think, you know, it's easy in fashion to do the next trend. Yeah. But if you're really focused on that arena, so I always say, like, if you're starting a brand, really understand what the arena is that you're solving for, and then go deep in that, and don't get distracted with like, you know, something that you think is cool. You just have like timeless things. I think a lot of people, it's different to create trends, but you know, items like, you know, obviously the simple t-shirts, but like a bomber jacket, it's not going to go out of style. Like it's been there. And our bomber crushes for us. Yeah. People love the bombers. And as you've expanded, like from the men's apparel, into the women's, like, how is that, like, why are you just now doing it? Was it like a strategic thing, or are you just, hey, we should fucking do women's apparel too? Like, I think, there is a lot of that still in business. Like if anyone's watching, like, a lot of it's just like a bunch of guys that love working. It's like, hey, what are we doing next? But what happened was I was friends with the Travis Matthew team, and they're like 15 years in, and they were like, it's hard to do women's for them. You know, they're a golf men's bro brand, you know? And then I saw Viore, who very similar to Cuts, where did the core short, and then eventually they got into doing women's, and now women's is a huge part of their business. Similar with Gymshark,
Yeah.
you know, that was the both Vuori and Gymshark, I think, are the bigger brothers to Cuts. Like we have aspirations.
Women love to spend money.
Love to spend money. And so I think for us, it was like, we don't want to go men's too long and then be a Travis Matthew. We'd rather be like a Gymshark or a Vuori.
And how did the women's launch expectation hit what you wanted, or like
crushed?
Really?
Yeah.
And when did it actually launch?
It launched in June, and we've already we've done millions of dollars in it.
Do you think
in our first month we did millions of dollars?
That's wild, man. Yeah. And I mean, was your plan? Because in my mind, like, I mean, obviously I haven't seen the products up close, but I'm assuming it's just as, you know, the quality is top tier. But do you think that the fact that you had so many customers of guys who were be like, you know, this is the shirt that I wear, these are the joggers that I wear, I love this brand. Hey, babe, totally. They got girl stuff now, and so you had this like customer base. You didn't have to find customers, but all of the significant others of the guys who were buying your stuff probably was a huge, just immediate influx.
Yeah, we had, from the one thing great about e-commerce, and you know, so you have data on everyone. So 30% of the men's of all shoppers were women in Cuts. So we had a lot
buying it for their guy.
For their guy. And we advertise big on like the Bachelor, the Bachelor Nation, and all the girls, because a lot of their followers are guys. So when we did girls, we had a lot of low-hanging fruit that was, you know, ready to buy. So we did have a lot of that. And
with the clothing company, you know, one of my good friends, Christian, owns Alpha Elite, massive company as of right now. He's, you know, locked in his office like a freaking cave. It's locked in his cave days in, days out, doing, you know, planning out the year. How far ahead with Cuts do you plan? Just for an example, like Christian goes, like he could show me the timeline of the next 18 months of every product that's going to launch the next 18 months. And it's like ridiculous in my mind, because I'm like, I need to plan something like that. Like, how far ahead do you get with the brand because it's so big now?
Yeah, we're 14 months about. We try not to be more than that, because then you're kind of making bets before like the market could turn. But around 14 months, I would say. Does he have a wholesale business?
No.
So he's all online, right?
Yeah, if he might. It'd be like 5%. If so, I don't think he has any. It's right now. It's 100% e-commerce.
So we're around 14 months. I think 18 months. I think that's the more time the better, I think, with that stuff.
Yeah, and is Cuts going to expand into, like, I feel like y'all could easily, I don't know if you already have, maybe I should have done a little bit more research, but like give backpacks, duffels, things like accessories, things like that.
Yeah, we have like a little like a European cinch bag that's going to be kind of coming out in the fall. Yeah, one lesson we learned though with women's is, you know, bootstrap business. You only have so many. Like every PO we buy is a bet. It's like it's making an investment. So we really try to think in where our success was in men's, having a high replenishment item that someone could come back for and buy. And
when you say high replenishment, like, kind of explain that like to people because obviously a lot of guys watching and be like, oh no, I've had this shirt for X amount of years. Like, maybe some people are thinking like, do they break down? You have to buy 5 of them, or like, why would people need multiples of the same item?
If we look at things, if you go in your closet, what do you have from a single item multiple of? So you probably have like woven shirts. You probably have a couple of dress shirts that you're a go-to. The ones, you know, that like the kind of the ones on your site, like the plaid ones, right?
Yeah.
You know, you have a lot of t-shirts in your closet. You have underwear, you have socks. We try to focus on items that have like you have a reason to buy multiple of that singular item.
Okay.
And that's replenishment.
Are you going to go down the route of, you said you have like a crossbody type of bag.
Yeah.
Are y'all, what's like the future of Cuts in terms of, what's like an item that you definitely want to create that you haven't yet that is in the pipeline? I
think a good woven shirt that's, it's like a flannel that it's not a flannel, because I think flannel is not really us, but it's in that vein that you could kind of put over the t-shirt.
When you said that the flannel is like, it's not us, do you ever not like put yourself in this box of like, Cuts cannot create products outside of this because it doesn't represent the core? Do you ever like dance that line and then expand it? And like, is there a certain Like in my head, like y'all's stuff, super, super simple, super clean. Like, do you ever think you'll do I don't want to say a loud graphic thing, but there's a way to cleanly do graphic tees. Like, is that something you might dabble with and it's like another line? Or do you think we have a very specific box realm of the style we want, and we never want to have stuff for people who maybe like the graphic stuff or like the louder stuff or like products that maybe aren't your exact niche?
So we have this program called Friday Projects every Friday at 9/27/16, which is the date of when our Kickstarter launches. That time frame when it launches on Friday is, if you look at it on a calendar years, we launched September 27, 2016. That's a little side note, but and so every Friday at 9/27/16, we launch one new product every week.
What?
And so,
wait, you launch a new product every week?
Every week, yep.
At 9/27/16.
Yep.
Who's in charge of pressing that live button? That's like, your number one job is to not make sure that it doesn't go past that time. Yeah. You hit the button.
I mean, I'm sure it's been, off from that, but it's more, we tell the customers, hey, be on around this time. But for like us testing graphics and stuff, that's our vehicle to be a little more risky. Low units though. So it's not mainline. It's like taking a step one to the right or the left. And it provides two values on the external. It's our height machine, but internally we like it because it's low risk. If something doesn't fail, if we can do 300 units of something, if it fails, no skin off our back, What's
examples of some like recent ones you've done that are maybe outside the box?
We had a vest that was like bright orange, like like the hyphy puffer vest.
Yeah.
That was one. We did a jogger that was kind of looser fit, that was kind of cropped up. That's kind of like trendy now. Those guys, like those cool kids that wear the baggy and high.
What's the test product that you didn't think would do well that like sold out, that you leaned into and now produce? Because I'm assuming if it does well, you lean into it, right?
It was. So we had the stand-up jacket and the bomber jacket. The bomber jacket's $275. The stand-up is like $120, right? The stand-up jacket, we were convinced this one's going to do better because it's a lower price point.
Yeah.
But when we launched the jogger, we launched like this red bomber jacket, and I think we had like 500 units. And I'm not even kidding you, because we have a Discord channel. It's got like 3,000 people, and that like they're like cuts like enthusiasts.
Yeah.
Like super anal about like the time. Oh, it launched at 9:28 or 9:30
in 17 seconds. You're fucking up.
And I love those guys. And they sold out. The red bomber super quick. And that was a good, and that was our first time. Like, does Cuts have price elasticity? Meaning we can sell expensive items. Our customers got taste. He has money like that. Like, we always thought that from the data, but it was a real good test. And then I think that was maybe the first moment. Like we got scale room here. Like we can go into like, we have one item I'm really excited about is like it's this kind of like the Jerry Lorenzo, you wear sweats. Is that
a sports guy?
No, he's the Fear God founder.
Oh, okay. Essentials, Fear God. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, the Fear God Nikes. I love my freaking shoes. I love those shoes.
Like a sweatsuit, but then it has a pea coat over it. We're creating one of those. It's going to be a pea coat, and it's going to be like $700, and we think we can sell a lot of them.
I think it's interesting when you find out. I've always danced around with price because you assume that. I've learned over time, and you probably as well, that you don't have to be. Price differentiation is not necessarily the best business strategy of being the cheapest. And
totally.
there's obviously, it's like hoodies are generally around $50 to $100 for your standard, hoodie. So people are used to paying that. But like, it's interesting how you can like realize that there are different price points that your customers are willing to pay, where like you might be surprised. We launched like duffel bags for mine. I've never in my life launched a product over $100 for mine. And then these duffel bags were like $250. I was like, they justify the quality. It should be this price. Sold out in like 3 hours. And I was scared because I was like,
it's a lot of money you had to pay.
It is, but I was worried. I was like, are people going to freak out about the pricing? Something that you said you learned about, like that customers, price elasticity, about like you can have these different price points. What are kind of like some final thoughts of I'd say your best 3 kind of like learning experiences you've had with cuts about getting people to be interested in your brand, interested in your product, and keep coming back, that maybe people listening who are not necessarily, it could not be with clothing, it could be with anything, but like, how do you keep customers coming back and continuing to want to be a part of what you've built?
I think really thinking through the brand and all the little details matter the most. Like one internal saying we have is like, let's make people notice the little things. Because if you're buying and you're like, wow, they really, went the extra effort on, the bomber jacket we have, or the vest, we have our little tiny little logos in the seam,
Yeah.
and nice little things that can be like, oh, this is a little bit better than like the Patagonia jacket that justifies the price. So if we can do the little things that stand out, we're going to have success. I would say just having passion behind it. Like the age old thing, like we're a bunch of guys in here, I'm a little bit over, just turned 30. And
You're only 30 years old?
32.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Damn,
yeah.
I'm 33. Old as fuck. Sucks, dude.
Just having passion. I mean, you know this, but it's just like things that I would be proud to like, if I was calling you up and like, if I was sending it to you, you'd be like, dude, this is sick.
Yeah.
Like sometimes I think when we've hired people, they don't have that same fire. Like none of us, like the core team doesn't have any fashion experience, like zero. We didn't go to school for it, but we know what we like and we know what our friends like. And that is way more valuable than 10, 20 years of experience in planning, because we know we are the customer. So that can't always serve you as, but it can give you a head start that these big corporations don't have.
That's good stuff, man. And I guess one final kind of question I have is, what advice do you give people who maybe aren't finding the success in what they're doing as fast as it's easy to get caught up. I always talk about, comparison is a thief of joy.
I love that line.
Yeah. It's actually, that's a quote by Max Tuning. No, I'm just kidding.
That's the Bible, right?
Yeah. It's same thing.
Yeah.
Like
you kind of look like Jesus. Right?
I'm like, what is it? What is it? Fergie? I don't know the Talladega Nights line. Like it's easy to get caught up in comparing where your business is at compared to other people who maybe are having rocket ship success. And you think no one wants this, no one whatever. I'm not doing $1 million my first year. I'm not growing 100%, each year. What advice do you have people that are maybe in that kind of rut, or they had a slight dip 1 month, 1 year, and they think their world is over?
I would say, and I still get, I look at like Gymshark, and I know Noel a little bit. We jumped on the phone and I'm like, what the, how do we get there? You know, like they're like absolutely blowing up. They got like 5 offices all over everywhere. And, they got a several $1 billion valuation, and I want that. And I think, try not to focus on like that big number. Like I think momentum doesn't get talked about enough. Like try to have more momentum this month than you did than last, and try to find the wins in things that aren't, like if you're selling products that necessarily aren't revenue. Like in the early days, I set up a calendar and I knew that I wasn't going to have revenue, but okay, let me get excited about getting a good sample in, or let me get excited about getting our website done, or this photo shoot. And that, like, I felt like I was on top of the moon for those 2 years pre-revenue, because I had a calendar, and I was building momentum, and that momentum turned into progress. And then I would say, the last thing, you got to do it with people you absolutely love. Like, Ethan, Brennan, Sean, some of these guys I kind of built the business with. We just have fun when we're doing this. So like even the struggles are it's still just a lot of fun. And we look at ourselves as like the insurgents in the fashion industry. We don't have experience with it, but like we're coming, and we're and having that like fun spirit of like, we're going to go get it. We're not going to raise money. It was funny. I'm going to leave the brand nameless, but this one brand raised 20 million, and they did 20 million. And
congrats, you've done $0.
Yeah. And I'm like, is that really an accomplishment? And we're sitting here thinking, man, we crushed them and we didn't raise any money in this given year. And I think like also what is good is picking a target of someone like that's in your like not necessarily above you, but similar to your start date.
Yeah.
And finding an enemy is actually a really good thing, because it can rally the team that you're starting with.
Gets you motivated.
Yeah.
Well, sick, man. Well, it's super cool to see what you've built in such a short period of time. again, very inspirational for me because just this type of clothing, what the brand that you've built is the exact, it's every single brand now is very trendy, what's the hot new thing, but you with your timeless and clean and simple. I'm from the East Coast, I'm in Texas now, I'm in Virginia. So I'm like the East Coast frat boy, and just the simple, clean, classic, timeless items is what I personally love. And, seeing what Cuts has done, it gives me a lot of inspiration for, my path in the clothing world, which has its frustrations at times, but just seeing you continue to lead the pack in this kind of world is super inspirational to see, man.
I love it. And I would say one kudos to you. When I first started on Ethan's couch and he showed me your videos and we would always watch yours. And I actually started vlogging because of you.
What?
I did 10 episodes and I got too busy running the business.
No, I just saw you. I actually just subscribed to your YouTube channel. I'm going to go back and watch them. I didn't realize I just found it like today. And I saw you have the building the brand. I'm going to watch them. I'm probably going to download them and watch them on my flight home.
It was, I was like, because when you were getting going and Christian and all these guys, I was like, that's going to be the route I sell it.
Yeah.
And then I started doing it and I realized there's no way I could run the business and do it. And that might've been an excuse. I think there's a way you could. But we're actually, and then we did a vlog for a year where we hired someone to do it. And then during COVID, we stopped because no one was in the office. We're actually going to start it up. It's going to be a little bit more like a docu-series rather than a vlog where it's like a little bit scripted, but it's like going over this journey. Hey, here's our goal, and it's gonna be cool.
I think getting people involved in behind the brand. Ghost example does a great job of that, of documenting the journey, because while your main audience is definitely probably the guys who are like, I'm not on really social that heavy. I just want these really clean, simple items to wear to work, to wear out. My what did you say was the
casualization of the
casualization? Is that a real word?
I don't know if I made it up or if we were you kind of develop, we have slang.
It's Stevenisms, if you will.
Yeah, it's isn't that it's casualization, and then it becomes everyone says it.
I love it. But getting people behind the brand and creating that community, I think will, continue to do great things for, what you're doing, and I just want to say thanks so much for coming on the show. I'm going to put your info down in the description as well as obviously Cut. So, I'm rocking one right here, guys. If you're interested in any stuff, the guys, the girls, go check them out. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at the items. I wish I had more time here to really deep dive into all the behind the scenes, because you growing your team, you said you have 50 employees, right?
Or 68, something like that.
And growing that and talking about building a team is something I wanted to dive into, but we'll maybe save that for another part 2. So super inspirational, man. Thank you so much. We're going to wrap episode number 35 of the Don't Be Sour show up here. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you comment, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. If you're on any sort of podcast streaming platform, give us a 5-star review. New episodes every Monday, 9 a.m. Eastern time. Thank you so much for tuning in. Eat more sour strips and ever forward.
Let's go. Dude, it was kind of hot in here. I'm sorry.
It was.
I was pitting out for sure.
That was solid, man.
Yeah,
Thank you so much, bro.
Yeah.
It's